There is an old saying in IT, if you do your job correctly, people won't be sure you've done anything at all. I lived by that rule. For 5 years, I was the IT director and sole engineer for a logistics company called Fast Track. When I started, they were using paper spreadsheets and fax machines. By the time I was finished, I had built a fully automated cloud-based infrastructure. I built the inventory system, the driver tracking app, and the client portal. I worked 80-hour weeks. I slept under my desk during the server migration of 2021. I saved the company millions of dollars in efficiency. The problem was, I made it too efficient. The system ran so smoothly that to an outsider, specifically, my boss, Gary, it looked like I did nothing all day. Gary is the kind of guy who types with 2 fingers and thinks the cloud is actual weather. He only cares about one thing, the bottom line. Last month, Gary started bringing his nephew, Braden, around the office. Braden is 22, wears sweatpants to work, and spends most of his time watching TikToks in the break room. Gary told me Braden was there to shadow me and learn the ropes. I tried to teach Braden. I really did. I tried to explain how the SQL database talks to the API. Braden just looked at me and said, "Brew, can't we just use ChatGPT to write this code?" I sighed and went back to work. I didn't think much of it. I thought he was just an intern filling time. Then came last Friday, 4:30 p.m. Gary called me into his office. Braden was sitting in the corner, smirking, playing on his phone. "Sit down, OP," Gary said, not looking up from his papers. He said, "What's up, Gary? Is the server acting up?" "No," Gary said. "The servers are fine. In fact, everything is running perfectly. That's actually what we need to talk about." He took off his glasses and gave me a fake, sympathetic smile. "We've been looking at the budget. You're expensive, OP. A 6-figure salary is a lot for a guy who mostly just sits in his office monitoring screens." I felt a cold knot form in my stomach. I monitor screens to make sure the data flow doesn't crash. If that system goes down, the trucks stop moving. Right, Gary waved his hand dismissively. "But it hasn't gone down in 2 years. You built a great system. It runs itself now. So, we've decided to make a change." He gestured to the corner. Braden has a certificate in computer science from an online course. He's going to take over as the IT lead. I looked at Braden. He gave me a little wave. "Sup," he said. "You're firing me?" I asked, my voice deadly calm. "To replace me with him." "We are restructuring," Gary corrected. "Braden is a digital native. He gets this stuff. And frankly, we can pay him 1/3 of what we pay you. It's just smart business. We need you to hand over your keys and badges. Today is your last day." I stood up. I could have screamed. I could have told him that Braden didn't know the difference between a router and a modem. I could have told him that the perfect system required daily, high-level maintenance that I did in the background. But I looked at Gary's arrogant face. I looked at Braden's smug grin. And I remembered the script. You see, the database I built generates massive temporary log files. To prevent the hard drives from filling up and crashing the entire company, I wrote a custom script. It requires a manual encryption key, which only I have, to be entered every 30 days to authorize the garbage collection process. If that key isn't entered, the logs don't delete. The drives fill up. The database locks. The company freezes. "Okay, Gary," I said, pulling my badge off my belt. "If that's your decision, I hope Braden is ready for the responsibility." "Don't worry about us," Gary laughed. "It's just computers. How hard can it be?" I placed my badge on his desk. "Good luck, Gary. You're going to need it." I walked out of the office without saying another word to anyone. I didn't delete anything. I didn't sabotage anything. I simply left. Gary didn't know it, but he had just started a 30-day countdown clock, and I was the only one who knew how to stop it. Walking out of the building on Friday afternoon felt surreal. I carried a small cardboard box with my mug, a framed photo of my dog, and my stapler. As I passed the server room, my sanctuary for the last 5 years, I saw Braden inside. He was spinning around in my ergonomic chair, taking a selfie for Snapchat. He hadn't even asked me for the admin passwords yet. He probably assumed they were written on a sticky note under the keyboard. Spoiler, they weren't. "Hey man," Braden called out, not even standing up. "Leave the badge on the desk. I'm gonna reformat your laptop later." "Sure thing, Braden," I said. "Don't forget to check the disk space usage on Sunday. It's the end of the month." Yeah, disk space. Boring. I'm installing a crypto miner on the backup server. Passive income, bro." I almost laughed. He was literally digging his own grave. I walked out to the parking lot, got into my car, and felt a wave of pure zen. For the first time in 5 years, my phone wasn't going to ring if a driver couldn't log in. I drove home, ordered the most expensive sushi platter I could find, and turned my phone to silent. Here is the thing about that 30-day countdown I mentioned. I had been fired on the 28th of the month. The garbage collection script, the one that clears the massive temporary cache files to keep the database breathing, was scheduled to run automatically on the 30th. That was Sunday. 48 hours later. I spent Saturday hiking. The air smelled sweeter. The birds sang louder. I didn't think about fast track once. Sunday morning rolled around. I was sitting on my deck, drinking coffee and reading a book. At 9:02 a.m., my phone screen lit up. It was a text from an unknown number, Braden. "Yo." The login ISNT working. "What is the password?" I swiped the notification away. I was no longer an employee. I had no obligation to provide tech support.
9:15 a.m.
Dude, answer me. The drivers can't upload their manifests. The system says disk full. How do I delete stuff? I took a sip of coffee. Disk full. The music of the gods. The log files had hit the capacity limit. When that happens, the SQL database goes into preservation mode. It locks. It becomes read-only. No new orders can be entered. No trucks can be dispatched. No invoices can be generated. The entire logistical brain of the company had just had a stroke.
9:30 a.m.
My phone started vibrating continuously. A call from Gary Boss. I let it go to voicemail.
9:31 a.m.
Call from Gary.
9:32 a.m.
Call from Gary.
9:35 a.m.
Call from the office landline. I finally picked up my phone, not to answer, but to check the voicemail. Gary's voice sounded like he was hyperventilating.
Up.
Pick up the phone. The whole system is down. The warehouse screens are black. We have 50 trucks sitting at the loading dock and nobody knows what to put in them. Braden says you broke something before you left. Fix it now. I smiled. Braden says I broke something. Classic. By noon, the panic had shifted to desperation. I had 45 missed calls. I decided to turn on the local news. Since FastTrack is a major regional logistics provider, a total shutdown causes ripples. Sure enough, a traffic reporter mentioned a massive backup of trucks causing delays on the highway near the industrial park. At 2 p.m., a Lincoln Town car pulled into my driveway. I watched from the window as Gary stormed up to my front door. He was sweating through his suit. He pounded on the door like the police. I opened it slowly. "Hello, Gary. To what do I owe the pleasure? I believe I don't work for you anymore." "Cut the crap." Gary screamed, pushing past me into my hallway. "What did you do? Did you hack us? I'll have you arrested." "I didn't do anything," I said calmly, leaning against the wall. I handed in my badge. I walked away. The system is just doing exactly what it's designed to do without maintenance. Braden can't get in. Gary yelled. He says it's asking for a master key. He tried password 123 and it locked him out. "Ah, yes," I said. "The encryption key. It changes every month. It's a 64-character alphanumeric string generated by an algorithm I wrote. Only I know the seed phrase." "Give it to me," Gary demanded, holding out his hand. "No," I said. Gary blinked. "What?" I said no. I am not an employee. I am not a consultant. I am a private citizen. And you fired me for being expensive and unnecessary. So, have your digital native nephew write a new code. We are losing $20,000 an hour." Gary shrieked. The clients are cancelling contracts. OP, you have to help us. I don't have to do anything, I said, opening the front door and gesturing for him to leave. But if you want to hire my consulting firm to fix the mess you made, my rates are very different from my salary. Gary looked at me. He looked at the open door. He looked at his phone, which was buzzing with angry client calls. How much? He whispered. I smiled. You're not going to like it. Gary stood in my hallway, looking like a man who was watching his life burn down. How much? He asked again, his voice cracking. I walked into my kitchen and grabbed a notepad. I did some quick math. Well, Gary, since I am an external contractor now, and this is an emergency Sunday call-out, and you were incredibly rude to me on Friday, here is the rate. I wrote a number on the paper and handed it to him. $500 per hour. Minimum 100 hours paid upfront. $20,000 emergency onboarding fee. That's $70,000. Gary shouted. For 10 minutes of work? Are you insane? I'm not charging you for the 10 minutes, I said, channeling an old engineering story I love. I'm charging you for the 5 years I spent learning exactly which 10 minutes of work to do. Also, every minute you stand here arguing, Fast Track is losing. What did you say? 20 grand. Gary turned red, then pale. He pulled out his phone. I can wire it, but you have to fix it right now. Money first, I said, pointing to my laptop. Wire it to this account. Once I see the confirmation, I get in the car. It took 10 minutes for the transfer to clear. The moment the $70,000 hit my account, I grabbed my keys. We drove to the office in silence. When we walked into the server room, it was chaos. The AC was blasting, alarms were beeping, and Braden was sitting on the floor, surrounded by empty Red Bull cans, looking like he was about to cry. I tried everything, Braden whimpered when he saw us. I even tried to delete the System32 folder to make space. I froze. You did what? I didn't do it, he said quickly. It wouldn't let me. Thank God for permissions, I muttered. I sat down at my old desk. It was covered in Cheeto dust. I pushed Braden's crypto mining setup aside. I opened the command terminal. The screen was flashing red text. Critical storage failure. Database locked. I cracked my knuckles. Gary and Braden hovered over my shoulder. How long will this take? Gary asked, do we need to buy new hard drives? Nope, I said. I typed in the command, run admin_maintenance.sh force. The system prompted, enter a UTH key. I typed the 64-character string from memory. I didn't even look at the keyboard. Access granted. Deleting temp logs. Storage freed. 4.2 terabytes. Restarting services. System online. The red text turned green. The beeping stopped. Outside the office, I heard the faint sound of printers starting up as the backlog of invoices began to print. Total time elapsed, 4 minutes and 12 seconds. I stood up and brushed the Cheeto dust off my hands. You're all set. Gary stared at the screen, his mouth hanging open. That's it. You just typed a password? You charged me 70 grand for a password. I charged you for the infrastructure that worked perfectly for 5 years until you broke it, I corrected. And I charged you for the stupidity of thinking you could replace a senior engineer with a kid who watches TikToks. I turned to Braden. By the way, that crypto miner you installed? It was eating 40% of your CPU power. That's why the crash happened 2 days early. You might want to uninstall that before the auditors come. Gary turned to his nephew slowly, his face turning a dangerous shade of purple. You were mining crypto on the company servers. Uncle Gary, I can explain, Braden started. I didn't stay for the family reunion. I walked out of the office, got in my car, and drove home. The aftermath. Fast Track didn't recover easily. They lost 3 major clients during the outage. Gary had to explain to the board why he paid a consultant $70,000 for a weekend of work. Last I heard, Braden was fired, and Gary was demoted to a regional sales manager. They hired a team of 3 people to replace me. 3 people to do the job I was doing alone. As for me, I took that $70,000, added it to my savings, and started my own boutique IT consulting firm. My first rule: I charge double for clients who think IT is easy. And I still have the stapler.